What's up, everyone? Welcome back to A Line in the Stars. I'm Jordan.
I'm Matt.
And we are here today to talk to you about Star Trek Strange New Worlds. When we last talked about Strange New Worlds, we were 3/4 of the way, basically, through season 1, and we had 3 episodes left, right?
Yeah, the last episode I think we had probably talked about was the Serene Squall. That was episode 7, so we still had 3 more episodes left in that season to talk about.
That's so crazy. Those episodes, June 23rd, 2022, the 30th of June, 2022, and then July 7th of 2022. So, I mean, we're getting close to almost 2 years since those episodes dropped. It's kind of insane.
Yeah, a year and a half now, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, since it's kind of truncated in season 1, it's a little bit in the past, and we are kind of like breaking some temporal accords here by looking back. I think for me, I think a good way to start this one would be to talk about our favorite moments from maybe those 3 episodes. What do you think?
Yeah, that works.
Cool. Why don't you go ahead and start?
Okay. I wanted to talk about All Those Who Wander. It featured, the main thing I remember it for is the depth of Hemmer, which was something I'm still not entirely over.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of throw in, the replacement for Hammer was fantastic. I really love Carol Kane in her role. But Hammer was gone too soon. Just too soon. We barely knew ya.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's not something I bring up a whole bunch, but and because it fits well with the original series, but it's the aliens on the main ship, on the starship of the show.
Right, exactly.
And Strange New Worlds kind of follows the aliens are present, but we just don't see a whole bunch of them. The cast is primarily human, or human presenting in number 1's case.
Exactly.
So having chief engineer who's Anar is amazing, because that is a species that we didn't really explore too much outside of when they were introduced in Enterprise. So it hurts seeing completely able in his own sense, despite early on like Uhura trying to help out, where like Hemmer is fully capable, and just getting to know Hemmer was just an absolute delight, and have him taken from us in episode 9 hurt immensely.
It did. It really did. Although in thinking about it, and especially like right now at this moment, and we've talked about this before, but it was, Hammer was part of Uhura's story. And, it was beautiful how the two of them connected. I really loved the scenes that they had together. And, he was the impetus for, her committing to joining Starfleet, which, going forward or backwards, depending on how you look at it. But like when you go look at Nichelle Nichols and the original series and then the original 6 movies, knowing that she's there and becomes a captain in Starfleet, like, is because of him, makes that death, although painful, I agree, it does make it one of those beautiful deaths in Star Trek. And so I do love, his little cut forward that we got to see a little bit of Hammer in season 2.
And that actually ties into the episode that you're going to talk about how the death of a character ultimately helps in the long run in major ways. But I'll let you talk about that when you talk about episode 10.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to bring up about All Those Who Wander is my duality of feelings on the Gorn.
Yeah.
The Gorn, how do you make a rubber suit costume in a caveman toga intimidating?
Right, exactly.
The solution that Strange New Worlds comes up with is make them Alien. Not just, they're an alien, but the movie Alien.
Right. Exactly.
And I think that's a very interesting take, and I kind of like it. And in the episode, it works really, really well for suspense horror, like survival. It's a really good alien episode of Strange New Worlds.
Exactly. It really is. And they did a great job of making them scary for sure.
Yeah, I think the redesign looks really good too. We don't actually see like a fully developed Gorn in this season, in season 1. We see it in season 2, right?
Right. We do see it in season 2, but yeah, in season 1, they were just juveniles.
Yeah. So it very much feels very alien.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm still going back to this, and part of it is my roommate rubbing off on me, is like there is an aspect to the original design, because you go back to the episode where they air when they first show up, and the whole premise of the episode is Kirk and the Gorn ship being pulled into this battle reluctantly and having to fight for an superior, omnipotent, yada yada being,
right?
Despite it like not wanting to, and it being presented as they are just two species. There's no monster aspect to them. Where in All Those Who Wander, like the Gorn are clearly monsters. They lay eggs in people.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
And so there's that back and forth of like, I really like the design and how they use this version of the Gorn, but in the back of my mind, considering how well Star Trek has been on making canon make sense, even with the adjustments that they make with the Third World War by pushing it ahead,
right,
and out from the 80s, because Voyager technically visited the 90s and there was no
Third
war happening.
Right, exactly.
So, so they handled their canon really well. So, and they will talk about it in the future, how they rope in, like, they show off that the animated series is canon. So we'll talk about that in season 2. But the thing that, crosses my mind is, are they going to try to make this canon, like make it feel like both versions are canon?
Right.
And I do have a theory that I don't expect them to do, because I am not a writer and I don't claim to have amazing ideas and plot lines. But one of the things we have not seen and we know about, and I know about thanks to Jordan, is that the Klingons have gone to war with the Gorn.
Yep.
And so in my head, I think it would be an interesting story for the Klingons to go to war with the Gorn, and it's the alien Gorn that are wiped out or eliminated and leaving, or it's some sort of thing where the alienness of it is just like, oh, that's just Gorn puberty sort of thing.
Right.
Because I think that would all both simultaneously like realign the image of the Gorn, because we see the Gorn in Gorn Wedding in Lower Decks, and they're all in the caveman drape. So we know what the Gorn look like post, the Picard movies.
Right.
So that's established. So in my mind, I think it kind of sets it the standard, not the standard, but the framework for how the Gorn go from alien to the leopard print outfits.
Right.
While also making the Klingons look badass as fuck.
Well, yeah, and that is an interesting point too. And the thing that I do love about what you just said is it's, like Star Trek will define something, but then they will also leave something open, and who knows what can happen with it, right? Like, Yeah, I mean, we've seen all versions of it now, and well, we actually haven't. So yeah, it'd be interesting for them to explore what the Klingon War would look like, and if, say, for instance, the thing that I keep thinking about, and to spin ahead to the end of season 2, I wonder if with the Gorn becoming all of a sudden super expansive and going outside of their territory, if that's what prompts the Klingons to actually go to war with them. And I wonder if we get to see an outside perspective of that war. Because it'd be difficult. Like, I mean, the Federation never actually went to war with the Gorn. So, like,
yeah, exactly.
So that's the thing. Like, yeah, I think that there's something there. And I think the thing that's there is that it's kind of open-ended and they can play with it. And that's the beauty of it, is like, we both know and don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe Spock goes to a whole bunch of Klingon ships and drinks a whole bunch of blood wine to convince them to go to war with the Gorn.
Or just one, and he just gets really wasted.
We keep jumping into season 2. We should really wrap up season 1 before we fully commit to this.
Well, I think I'll just go ahead and touch on the Elysian Kingdom. By the way, was a fantastic episode. I really love that Mbenga got his due. He got his episode, and I really enjoyed the fact that he got some closure for his daughter. And just as a quick little DS9 quick little reference, the book The Elysian Kingdom was written by Benny
yes Benny Russell, I think.
Benny Russell, you're correct. Yeah, it was Benny Russell who is the character done in the episode where where Cisco was writing the story of Deep Space Nine, and it was rejected because they didn't want to have a black captain. I really just love that little reference, and I kind of wanted to toss that in there.
Yes.
But for me, my favorite episode of season 1, and probably top 3 episodes of modern Star Trek for me, is the season finale of season 1, and that's The Quality of Mercy. Fantastic episode for a lot of different reasons, but really for me, once again, it was exploring Pike and his story and how he recognizes right there, that I got this chance to change something. I can do something about this. And all of a sudden he's there to tell himself no. And here's why. And when he doesn't buy it, he sends him back. And when they send him back, I love the conversation that Pike has with himself, both at the beginning and the end of the episode. I think it just shows like an incredible maturity on the character's part. But for me, the biggest reason why I really enjoyed the episode was how they recreated Balance of Terror from season 1 of the original series. And it was almost shot for shot recreation for that episode, and just juxtaposed with, Pike being in charge as opposed to Kirk. But then we get the introduction of Paul Wesley's Kirk, and Pike is the Boy Scout where Kirk's the cowboy. And you get to see that, I think one of the things that season 1 really did well was justify how much we fell in love with Kirk or with Pike during season 2 of Discovery. But it's also that reminder that, there's a reason why we also loved Kirk. And why Kirk's character, the bravado and the I'm not going to take any shit from you attitude, really makes a difference in why he doesn't believe, not believing in losing. And he's this guy, he's a cowboy, right?
Yeah.
And so I loved seeing the two characters playing off of each other. And I love seeing, how in Balance of Terror, it goes the way of the Federation and we don't hear from the Romulans again for a very long time, right? In this one, it, because of the way Pike had handled the situation, it spun off into war. shout out to the, movie era uniform recreation that they did. Oh my God. Like my favorite Star Trek uniforms of all time. And the recreation of it, the modernization of it, it just, so good. But, it was for all of that, it was, with Pike saying, hey, I can actually fix my future. And older Pike is here to tell him why. And the reason for that is because he can't pawn his fate off on someone else. Right. And history, I guess, demands penance, so to say. And, although Pike was able to solve the problem, not without, like, he was able to get the Enterprise out of there, but not without, sacrifice. And that sacrifice being that Spock was messed up and would never actually be the same again. And, there's this moment, like when Spock and Pike are there at the end of the episode and it's in the regular timeline again. And Spock just kind of looks at Pike and he goes, I don't know what it is, but something tells me that I owe you a big thank you. Just a powerful moment because, that friendship between Spock and Kirk is legendary. It's the thing that, like, is part of what defined Star Trek and what made Star Trek, like, why we're still talking about it today. But also that friendship between Pike and Spock and why Spock did what he did in the menagerie when he, basically betrayed and violated Starfleet rules to save Pike. It just makes it make so much more sense. And so I just loved that, moment where, before he flashes back into the regular timeline, and you have Nurse Chapel there and she's like, yeah, he's never going to be the same. And the realization settles in. You see him settle into that moment and live in that moment. And in that moment, he realizes, oh shit. Yeah. Like my fate is my fate. And it's interesting is like when we talk, about some of our favorite episodes from the next season, it's like the culmination, the final part of that puzzle piece gets put into place. And so, yeah, Quality of Mercy for me was just like, for me, since 2017 when, CBS All Access and then eventually Paramount Plus, since all of this began, like I would say that Quality of Mercy for me is like a top 3 favorite episode. So,
yeah. I agree. Like Quality of Mercy is just an absolutely fantastic episode and one in which, like going back and rewatching Balance of Terror, one, obviously, you see the similarities in the recreated shots. And when I was watching that again, I went through A Quality of Mercy and I'm like, Pike did all the right things. Like, these are all things that I believe Pike would do. 2, I like Pike.
Right.
He's the captain. And the decisions that he makes, like you said, the diplomacy aspect of it, while like talking to the Romulan captain, I very much believed when Romulan said that, in another time, in another place, like we could be friends, we could be allies. I felt that resonate a lot more with Pike than when it was said to Kirk.
Yeah, agreed.
Because both captains are coming from a place of diplomacy and avoiding violence. But unfortunately, that was something that could not be avoided if both parties wanted to stop.
Right.
And something where Kirk, in A Quality of Mercy, Kirk, it both comes off as brash and reckless, but also 100% Kirk, understandable, and has that cowboy, like, gunslinging attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Where the only reason why it's not happening his way is because his ship got destroyed saving the Enterprise.
I know. So great.
And I really loved the back and forth between Pike and Kirk, because that's something that at that point we didn't get a whole bunch of. Like, we hadn't been exposed to more Pike and Kirk interactions yet. So
it was really of
interesting.
The J.J. Abrams Star Trek.
Outside of J.J., yeah.
That doesn't really count.
That doesn't really count because we love
Bruce.
We love this Pike.
Yeah, we love. I mean, there was Bruce Greenwood. He did a fantastic.
Bruce Greenwood's good, but it's a different dynamic.
Absolutely.
In those movies too, because Kirk is so absolutely young,
right?
To be
100%
be
brash.
The eventual captain of the Enterprise.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So that was a whole different dynamic with those two. But
absolutely. Yes, I mean, I think, for me, season 1 was an absolute hit, and it made us excited for season 2, and so I guess let's get right into season 2, shall we?
Let's do that.
Season 2, it was definitely something that was highly anticipated by us and by everyone else, and we knew that, going into it, they were going to have kind of themes. Each episode was going to try to do something a little different on a certain theme, and, that was the one thing I was like, I wonder if they're leaning into something so much, and so... I think that, for me, like, I guess the best way of starting the review of this season would be to just, instead of focusing on the individual episodes and what have you, because they've already come and gone, everybody who's listening to this has already seen it more than likely. I think that it would be good to just for both of us to talk, give us some of our favorite moments and kind of start from there. What do you think?
That sounds good.
All right, so I'm going to leave it up to you to start. What are some of your favorite moments from season 2?
Well, I think I'll start off with my first favorite. Well, not my first favorite. The first of my favorite episodes, because it ties really well into where season 1 left off.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of season 1 of Strange New Worlds, we see number 1 get arrested for being an Illyrian, and that is picked back up immediately in season 2. Now, the Broken Circle is, they go off and take care of, or rather, Pike is stated to go off to go get help to get number 1 freed from prison.
Right.
So they go off. So the Enterprise goes off and does other things. One of which is stuff with Klingons and man, Ethan Peck playing Spock, just drinking with Klingons.
Oh man,
was incredibly funny.
It was just real quick that like has a tie all the way back to Star Trek 6. Like and how the Klingons super respect Spock.
Yes.
It's crazy.
But the episode I want to talk about is the second one, and that's Ad Astera per Aspera. And man, this episode is incredible. First off, who doesn't like a good courtroom scene? Star Trek episodes almost always have some sort of courtroom trial, whether it be humanity on trial, thanks to Q, whether it be the humanity of Data, it be the Quinn trial in Voyager. Those kind of episodes are really character focused, and that's one of the things that Star Trek does incredibly well. And you can do courtroom drama all day in my book. And it'll always kind of be interesting. So all boiled down, this is a courtroom scene and drama of essentially number one fighting for her existence in Starfleet and seeking asylum, and that being granted to her by Pike, and for her right to exist in the way she wants to be, and how she joined Starfleet because of the diversity it displayed and the freedom, and how she wanted to be up there, and just that episode.
Yeah. Really
that
good.
episode. Like, you have bring back stuff with how the banning of genetically modified individuals being a barrier to joining Starfleet and joining the Federation was something that was brought in to our knowledge with I believe it was the Ghost of Illyria.
Yep.
Where you see the fallout of that, where we're shown that they did try to stop and to reverse the process, but it ultimately damned I believe it was I don't remember if it was a planet or the outpost.
It was a whole planet.
Okay, yeah. So you see how it is essentially human-centric biases impacted the rest of the galaxy, the founding of the Federation. Human-centric biases were preventing worlds who wanted to or could benefit from, and that law was made out of fear because of the eugenics wars on Earth.
Right.
And it's one of those things where you would think, like, at the time of Kirk, at the time of Picard, that humanity had gone past that. I mean, it makes sense to have some of that in, say, Enterprise, because humanity is just going out there and exploring the stars, and the Federation hadn't been started yet.
Right.
But something that
you still see it in Picard. Like, I mean,
still see in Picard. Exactly.
Yeah, beginning of Picard.
Data.
Well, yeah, you have the synth ban, which is all out of fear as well, and it's the Federation and Starfleet burying its head in the sand and using human philosophies and values as the formative basis for the Federation itself, which is fundamentally flawed if you actually think about it.
It is.
It really is. And it really has ramifications specifically for the Illyrians and number one. And, credit to Pike for seeing right through it, right? Like, I mean, he's like, whatever, you're my first officer. I'll do all of it be damned. Like, we will figure it out, and yeah, this episode really highlights, exactly those decisions, and highlights, it's not for all of Una being on trial. It's really the Federation and their values that are on trial.
Exactly.
Here. And they realize that. At the end of the episode, like, they let her into Starfleet because they're backed into a corner and they can't do anything about it, right? They cannot do a thing about it. And so, yeah, it beautifully written, beautifully acted for sure. The actress that got to play the prosecutor or the defense lawyer, excuse me, her name is losing me right now, but it absolutely beautifully acted, and it was I get why the Broken Circle was the first episode of the season. Seeing Spock steal the Enterprise was fantastic, and it was a great like way of starting it out. But I really do think that Ad Astra Per Aspera should have been the season premiere. It would have been a much more. It would have hit harder, and they could have found a different reason for Spock to steal the Enterprise. I think.
Yeah, you're right. I think it does like it. It kind of cools off the tension that they set up for getting number one out of there.
Yeah, absolutely.
By having a side story, a good side story, but something that pulls away from the cliffhanger we wanted to get resolved.
Right, exactly. And I know that a lot of that had to do with, Anson Mount and he had just having a kid and all of those things. So, I mean, it is what it is, but, I agree that it just kind of like deafened the tension, like at the end of season 1, number one is being arrested and Captain Patel is the one arresting him and this is his girlfriend. And, yeah, absolutely. Like he's ready to go deck some Starfleet officers, dude, so, Pike can be a Boy Scout, but he's also passionate. And so, it really was, it did deafen it, but the episode itself was just so fantastic. I can't disagree with you whatsoever.
I also want to point out the trial uniforms. I believe it's the dress uniforms.
It's the dress uniforms, yeah. The modernization of the dress uniforms, yeah. Oh, so good.
Also slightly updated, but like iconically, like recognizable. That like yes, this is what this is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you forget how colorful those uniforms are when you put it into essentially New Trek.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, wow, boy, was that time era like
super
specific.
Colorful. Yeah. It's like it's like neon for the late 80s and early 90s.
Yeah. Like I look at that and I also am reminded of when they did a whole bunch of different insignias instead of the Delta for other ships.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that's right. This is this is pre-TOS.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Any other like favorite moments from the season besides that?
I mean, I do, but I think I want to hand off the next one to you because it just so happens to be the next episode after Ad Astra Per Aspera.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite moment for sure is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. My favorite personal episode, like Matt and I have the same, like our top 3 episodes, and we'll go into that. But he talked about Ad Astra Per Aspera, and the next episode was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and that was the episode where La'an travels back to 21st century Earth with Kirk. And
a different Kirk, an alternate universe Kirk. And it's where, we get the explanation of kind of like where the timelines start to diverge and why we don't see certain things happening now versus later or earlier. And, all of that's great, but really it was the relationship between La'an and Kirk that it had me thinking. Like it was just such a beautifully put together, like in a 45-minute episode, like you shouldn't be able to put together that quick of a relationship, but it works because we knew Kirk and it works because we know La'an. And it was, like seeing her open up to him, seeing him see her for who she is, not knowing who Khan is, right? So he's literally just seeing her for her. And then her seeing him for that. And all of the vulnerability that she shows the first time that we see her really like that at all. And, to have that Kirk die right in front of her, and have it done by a Romulan agent, which, I'm just like, like it
the one, like, we'll talk about the knocks that we have against the season if there is any, but I just think that the writers and showrunners for Picard and Strange New Worlds should be talking with each other, because the watchers should be like actually on top of what's going on there, and it is a little odd. But anyway,
it's one of those. It's one of those things that because these were temporal agents,
right, exactly.
So we could only assume that temporal war. The thing about temporal wars is it happens across time,
right?
So, which is interesting because now, we can definitely say that we have now personally experienced some of the temporal wars,
right,
through this,
absolutely.
Because other than that, we've only had Enterprise,
right? Exactly,
and to see these are small changes to the timeline and whatnot, and we see different obviously a different Kirk. We see a different Kirk who's the captain of the Enterprise. But I find it real interesting that we were able to see this, and I can only assume that there is some aspect of again the Watchers that go okay, yes, we could stop this to steal a phrase is from two different media shows, preserve the timeline, but this is a canon event,
right? And
at the time that the temporal wars are happening, and this is a canon event in the temporal wars.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Beyond that episode, for me, just a couple other favorite moments. The episode Charades, where Spock just becomes human, having to go through that whole thing, seeing Amanda come back, that was a great moment. I really enjoyed that episode. And I think my favorite other moment is the very end of the episode Under the Cloak of War, and when M'Benga and the Klingon, what was his name? Ro? I want to say, what is his name?
Doc Ra. I think.
But yeah, so where they have him, and M'Benga, and M'Benga's just like, bro, just go away. I don't want to talk to you anymore. You're just over it. And then they cut back into M'Benga's office, and opaque, and it's just implied that something happened. Just such a great Star Trek episode, Star Trek moment where they get you thinking. And that was a beautiful episode. I really enjoyed that one. So yeah, those are some of my favorite moments from this season. Go ahead.
I also, thinking about the episode again, I remember watching that episode and thinking, man, that is a next generation Klingon. Him
100%.
Telling the stories.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is a next gen Klingon.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This is perfect.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is it's that because that was a next gen Klingon, right? It makes the story believable. It makes it all just seamless, and it makes the character believable. And that's the beauty of it. It just absolutely believable character. And M'Benga obviously is the fighting doctor, right? He's kind of a badass.
Yeah, he is a badass.
And they prove it in this episode too. He's the butcher of, Jagal. And it's, oh man, just such a great episode. This in a season full of amazing episodes, those are a couple of the moments where Spock specifically has to grab the boiling pot in Charades and set it down without reacting after watching Amanda do it with grace, and the moment where it cuts back into Mega's office, just some of my favorite moments from this season.
Yeah. And also, since you reminded me about it, I also wanted to mention that it was really nice to see Amanda in season 2.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that I didn't really realized I was missing, and that was essentially, you can put it in a way that's like, you see why Sarek fell in love with her.
Right, exactly.
There is something about Amanda that is specifically in Charades, where this is going a little bit further into character moments that I loved, but Amanda takes no shit from T'Pring's parents, like specifically her mom. I think T'Pring's father is a sweetheart who has no backbone.
Absolutely, total pushover.
But there, like, you understand in that episode what makes Amanda so amazing as just a person,
right.
Fully capable, no nonsense, able to keep a stiff upper lip and go through the blatant, like, speciesism.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting.
Does shows where you can point out, like, where the strength, some of Spock's strength comes from, and that's from his mom.
Absolutely, 100%.
And there's also sprinkles of Burnham in there too. Like, you get to see where Spock can pull from his strengths from the people around him. And I think that's one of the benefits of expanding Spock's familial zone.
Right, exactly.
And see how their impact on his life. And no, seeing Amanda help Spock with something that he will definitely be wrestling with for the rest of his life, his humanity, and showing him that that's not a weakness.
Right.
The other thing, and I know I brought up, this kind of went into character moments, but I'll jump back into favorite moments, and that is just seeing the Gorn as fully developed.
Oh yeah.
In both, in really, I think it was the finale, mostly.
Hegemony.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Homogeny.
Hegemony. There we go. Wow, words. Yeah.
We did it. We're keeping that one.
Yeah, we are.
That was too funny not to.
That was, yeah. Hegemony.
That I think this shows the costuming and monster and creature design is just aces in Strange New Worlds.
Absolutely.
And as well as how that episode goes about going through was essentially a quaint town under siege by Gorn, feel like a war zone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, those are some of my thoughts on favorite moments. The first one kind of dipped into a favorite episode, but
same. Yeah.
I think if I could really say like this is such a strong season that I know I'm missing some things that when I rewatch season 2 again, I'll be like, I can't believe I didn't mention this.
Right,
and then
exactly.
I'll say, I can't believe I didn't mention this on a future episode. So,
yep. Well, for I guess to kind of go on to the next part, did you have a favorite character moment this season?
I think you touched on it already, but the development of M'Benga and Nurse Chapel, what they went through with the war with the Klingons.
Yeah.
I don't know if you probably won't get this reference, but my roommate and I had made it because we've watched Cowboy Bebop. We both said, like, I can't believe they added Red Eye to Star Trek, and Red Eye and Bebop is essentially the same thing that in Star Trek does. which is just heightens your senses, makes time feel like it's slowed down and makes you stronger, faster, and whatnot.
It's pretty badass.
It's badass, scary, and like intimidating. And I don't remember if Mbega said that it was harmful, but I would believe if it was. That development for Mbega and Nurse Chapel, we'll touch on it later as part of favorite episodes, but seeing the ups and downs of the continuing Chapel Spock relationship and how that all goes was both interesting, briefly heartbreaking, and understandable. And I'm excited for Nurse Chapel being granted the
fellowship.
Fellowship, for getting into the fellowship, and she's gonna go off the Enterprise and meet her future husband, which is gonna be a TOS episode.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You'll probably mention things, and I'll probably double down on what you say. But what's your favorite character moments?
I just have one specifically. It's the moment where Pike is speaking with Boimler and Mariner in his quarters. When he is talking to them, and Boimler is the one that finally gets through to him. I find there's something poetic about that. And I don't know if it's maybe the character moment is for Boimler, maybe it's for Pike, but that moment where it's something poetic about it, the fact that it was Boimler who got through to him, and it was Pike saying, well, I'm revered this much by this person, and I must have done something right in history. And he settles into his fate. It was it was a beautiful moment. It was a beautiful moment. I really felt that in arguably one of the best episodes of Star Trek ever made. It was a very poignant and special moment that kind of tied up a character arc that started at the beginning of season 2, and you throw it all the way back to the cage, right? It tied it up, and everything that moved forward with Pike felt new and fresh. And I felt like that was a really cool moment for this season. So yeah, that was my favorite character moment. And if I were to have a quick runner up for that one, it was in Subspace Rhapsody, where the song, Chapel's song, where she breaks up with Spock. And it was that pure confidence. I'm going to do this. I'm a badass, and it doesn't matter who you are, what you say, I'm going to do this. Super cool moment. So yeah, that would be a close second one for me. So yeah. Yeah, so I guess that kind of brings it in. We've each kind of mentioned our top favorite episode from the season. I don't know if it's our top favorite episode, but it's the episode that has, that diverges from the two that we both really enjoyed. And so what are your top 3 favorite episodes from this season? And I know that 2 of those 3 are the same as mine. So
yes. So I did already talk at length about Ad Astera per Aspera. So the next one I'm gonna bring up is something that we'll probably want to tag team on, and that is episode 7, Those Old Scientists.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And yeah, great episode.
First off, again, a lot of my favorite moments are in my top 3 favorite episodes. And first off, the opening on the animated show.
Yeah.
You are watching the last 16 episodes all in live action. You pop on episode 17, episode 7 of season 2, and you're greeted with
Lower Decks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could go on forever about those old scientists.
Yeah.
The love that this episode was directed by Jonathan Frakes.
Yeah, can't go wrong.
And like the amount of, it feels like it's an episode of Lower Decks, which is probably one of my favorite Star Trek shows.
Right. Same.
Boimler and Mariner go back to Pike's era, and a whole bunch of Lower Decks shenanigans happen.
Right.
That are on brand and are also events that make you very much feel for Pike on how ludicrous this is and how frustrating it is to have two time travelers on your ship making weirdly specific references.
Right, exactly. That was a great line in there. And for me, it was just the comedy in it was on point. It was perfect. Yeah, that was, for me, in that episode, it was just all of the comedy aspects. The Riker moment,
one of the best of all of the references that Lower Decks does. I think the improv Riker onto the saddle in Pike's room in front of Uhura.
Right. While Jonathan Frakes is behind camera.
Was amazing.
Yeah, it was.
I feel like I make it sound like my favorite things about this episode were the references. And yes, but you have some really good moments, and heartbreaking ones, specifically the one with Nurse Chapel and Boimler in the turbolift.
Oh yeah.
Boimler is all freaked out about Spock smiling.
Yeah.
And he's obviously worried, as Boimler would be. He's concerned about preserving the timeline. He goes, well, I can't do anything to upset that thing, because if anything happens to Spock, they could have wild ramifications for the time I came from. Like, Spock needs to be Spock, and I can't undo that. And he, in proper panic Boimler fashion, starts listing off reasons why this feels weird and everything he knows about Spock, and inadvertently breaks Chapel's heart, not hearing her be mentioned at all in like this moment of his life where he is experimenting with his humanity, that she's not mentioned at all. The gut punch I felt sitting on the couch, having him, like, listening to him say that, and then realizing, like, you just shattered her heart on that.
Yeah, and just by like making some offhand comment and worrying about yourself.
Immediately followed by Boimler's realization and immediate like distress that he goes like, I just said something that was absolutely incredibly hurtful.
Right.
And Nurse Chapel's line followed up and goes, yeah, I wasn't expecting, to be a huge part of his life for forever or anything. It's just like, oh.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like that has ramifications later on in Subspace Rhapsody, where that might have been in the back of her mind.
Right.
Some other things, real quick, because like I said, I could go on forever about those old scientists. Just seeing Tawny Newsome and Jack Quaid as Mariner and Boimler, respectively, in live action. The fact that Jack Quaid has the purple hair.
Yeah.
Seeing them just lower dexing it up. The Boimler Section 31 walk.
Yeah.
Another character moment. Real quick, the Nurse Chapel and Otegas talking in the bar, and them messing around with Boimler on timeline stuff, and him accidentally slipping about the captain's birthday and how it's a holiday.
Yeah.
From the time that he comes from. And then I think the biggest one, also the stuff that, the scenes that Mariner has with Uhura.
Yeah.
As well, just the image of Uhura that Mariner has in her head is something that obviously is something that Uhura works towards. It's a step, and it catches obviously Uhura at a huge disadvantage interacting with someone who has her entire life
memorized
as part of history textbooks.
Right, exactly.
But then also one of the, I think the most touching scenes in that episode was Boimler has a poster of you in his bunk. A pinup poster of number one? It's pinned up.
Right.
Are we talking about the same thing?
Right.
That it is something that initially catches number one off guard, thinking, she's thinking something terrible's happened, but is revealed to her that she is the face of Starfleet recruitment.
Right. That was a great moment.
And that is incredibly empowering, especially after episode 2, where she just fought for her right to be there.
Right. Exactly.
And it is incredibly moving. And like number one said, you could have led with that.
Exactly.
Also, again, one last reference is do you realize how slow everyone talks here?
For me, it was just in those old scientists, it was just the humor. It was everything, just the humor, the fast pace, the humor, like Jack Quaid and Tawny Newsome, the energy that they brought, the way that everybody just interacted and the fun that they seemed to have. And then my favorite part of the whole episode is the animated Strange New Worlds at the very end of the episode. It's super good. I loved seeing how they animated up the characters, and how the joke at the end, where Mbenga's like, what the hell is in this drink? Just so good. I really enjoyed that one. Those old scientists was, one of those episodes that you can watch 1,000 times and catch little references, like the Boimler and Spock in the lab trying to do their thing, and just so many great little moments, so many funny moments. The shuttlecraft scene where La'an catches them, and just so many of those scenes. And it was my favorite moment in the episode was when the Orions were, desperate to try to, there's no such thing as Orion scientists, right? Yeah. And, we know that's not true, especially from Tendi, but Tendi doesn't become Tendi unless, there's another mistress of the winter constellations on board, another ship in that era. And it happened to be that one. And I just love that moment that when the captain of the ship, when he closes his eyes, looks up, and he goes, that's all we ever wanted, was to be known as an Orion science vessel. Yeah. It was that was a very Star Trek moment. In a very Star Trek episode, it was a very Star Trek moment. And I really enjoyed that. And then, we both can agree Subspace Rhapsody was a hoot of a good time, to say the least. The music was on point for a musical episode of Star Trek. never done it before. Like,
yeah,
there's been a little bit of singing here and there. Like, you know, you get in Insurrection, you know, you got Data Worf and Picard singing at the beginning. You have Girardi singing in season 2 of Picard. You have, you know, lots of different little bits and pieces here and there, but never ensemble pieces. And they nailed it. They like absolutely nailed it. Like, the episode itself had serious consequences. They had a great story, but then the music made sense. Like, I was like, how the hell are they gonna figure out how to do this? But they figured out how to do it, and it really worked. It really worked. It was such a great episode. Like, the music itself was fantastic and all very catchy and sing-alongable, and yeah, just a great episode. I loved it.
Yeah, the Subspace Rhapsody, when it being a musical episode, when I first heard about it, I go, this could either be amazing, which it was, or it could go too far into silly and be a little bit ridiculous.
Right.
And it really, really did balance that line of being goofy. You had several songs that was, we need to have a quiet conversation, a serious conversation, and be true to your crew, I think it was. Something like that. Like, both of those were jaunty little things that were goofy, that lightened the mood, as tiny little ditties. But everything was done so well. The story was incredibly well done. The music was incredibly scored. The opening, being a cappella, was an amazing touch. And coming off the heels of Those Old Scientists, I expected to hear some sort of musical change to the theme, because they animated the opening for Those Old Scientists.
Yeah, they did.
But I definitely, like, I want to say, like, that episode was lit, and those songs were breathtaking. I literally forgot to breathe rewatching it. Yeah. Like, at the end of songs, I would go, and I'm like, oh, that's right, breathing is a thing.
Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't gone back and tried to learn the songs yet. That's crazy.
Oh, I have. And again, one of the other things is, after the episode came out, they released the album on Spotify, and I've been listening to it weekly since. And a lot of that comes from, like, again, the absolutely astounding performances, and just Christina Chong and Celia Rose Gooding. Both of their solo songs are my two favorites of the entire album.
Yeah, I agree.
Like I said, I've listened to it very, very frequently. And the whole thing was fun. Kirk going, I thought you guys all rehearsed this, but then I started singing.
Yeah, absolutely. That was good. Yeah, it was a fun episode. It was in a season full of audacity. It was probably the most audacious, and it landed. It somehow perfectly landed, and that was the thing that surprised me the most. Is I was like, this may not be the greatest thing in the world, but it 100% landed, and that was really satisfying for me.
Yeah, also another character moment that I really liked was just the line of Pike singing out, "I'm so proud to be your captain."
Yeah.
I really like that, and that resonated with me. It's a good crew. Like, he's right. Like, I love the crew of the Enterprise.
Yeah, same.
And I think of season 2, I think Those Old Scientists and Subspace Rhapsody are like 10 out of 10. Like, there is nothing wrong with either of these episodes.
No, yeah, I agreed. And you can they could have their places among the top 10 episodes of Star Trek of all time, I think.
I mean, also Ethan Peck is no slouch either. Like,
no.
I'm the X was one really well written.
It was clever.
Of like the mathematical aspect to it too.
Yep.
And the song that follows it, the grand finale song, well, not the very last song, you can tell that Ethan Peck is singing differently. He's singing like a Vulcan that we've heard like Tuvok sing, where it is just the musical notes. There's no vibrato. There's no emotion in his singing anymore. That's because he is repressing back down the humanity after being dumped in song form by Nurse Chapel.
Right. Exactly. So I guess that's kind of a good little segue. Was there anything negative for you this season?
I don't think so. I think I had more negative, like not more negative thoughts on season 1, but I had less to complain about or nitpicks.
That's good.
With season 2 than I did with season 1. I think season 2 kind of really just knocked it out of the park. I think the only one that I would say I don't think of as much is Among the Lotus Eaters, where they go back to they go to Rigel 7.
Yeah.
That one was interesting, but didn't really stick in my mind.
Agreed.
As well as some other episodes.
Agreed.
As well as Lost in Translation, where really, I mean, Uhura sees like hallucinations, and one of them being like a corpse hemmer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have anything like specific in regards to any negative thoughts on the season in big. It's just like ones that just did not stick out as much.
Yeah, for me it was just I felt like they leaned a little too hard into each episode being its own theme. They did that in season 1, and then they went into it harder in season 2.
They did.
Yeah, and that would be my only knock. I'm hoping that with season 3 that they go more into, you know, like a blend of like what season 1 had and then what season 2 was. You know, like just a little bit more straight storytelling as opposed to trying to tell a theme every single week, which will work if you have 15, 16, 17 episodes and you have 10 themed episodes. But when you only have 10 episodes, I think that backing off a little bit on the theming would be good. But that would be my only knock for it. I agree on both the episodes, Lost in Translation. Although Lost in Translation had our earliest introduction to Canon Kirk, which was great. The scene
That's true. Yeah.
And the scene with him and La'an, where she tells him, you know, kind of she has feelings for him, and then he brings up the fact that Carol Marcus is pregnant and he's got an on again, off again relationship. There was some great stuff in there. So
that was Subspace Rhapsody.
Was that Subspace Rhapsody?
That was Subspace Rhapsody.
Are you sure?
That was one of the non-musical ones.
Okay, I could have that all wrong. Either way. And then Among the Lotus Eaters, definitely, like, I enjoyed the reference, you know, because it's a formative mission in Pike's story. But, yeah, I just, you know, it did not land very well. And just kind of, like, I forgot about the episode, to be real, until we just brought it up. And so, yeah, that was the only thing that, you know, was negative for me. Let's switch over to a positive thing. What about a character? Do you have a character that stood out to you?
Yes, and I'm also going to tie this into what I'm looking forward to next season.
Yeah.
That's Scotty.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, great reference. I love that we got Scotty at the end of the season. I love that.
I could also always say I could, like, you know, again, Pike being amazing, getting development with Spock.
Mm-hmm.
I could say seeing Boimler and Mariner in season 2, but I think from what we got from Scotty in the finale, because he was teased in the final episode of season 1,
right?
While it was a different actor who was voicing Scotty. We now have Scotty. We now have him set up, as he exists.
Right.
He'll be here. And I am looking forward to him being here.
Same.
Also played by a Scottish person. So
I know, and the accent's actually like legit and real. It's great.
Legit.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So yeah, I'm gonna say a character that stood out was seeing Scotty, because we didn't have any idea that we were gonna see Scotty and have him be just incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah. I'm looking for Scotty.
Okay. What's interesting is the character that stood out to me, and I'm also looking forward to this the most in the next season. It's kind of interesting they did it that way, and that was Kirk.
Agreed.
I thought that Paul Wesley knocked it out of the park. I really enjoy his interpretation of Kirk. You get a little more of a thinking man's Kirk, which is totally fine, but then you also have the bravado cowboy, so it really works for me. I'm looking forward to seeing how they incorporate him into season 3. And now that you brought that up, one of my favorite moments, absolute favorite moments, is when Kirk, Spock, Uhura, and Scotty are sitting there. That doesn't happen, does it?
That is not. I don't think that happens.
No, but it's
yet.
Kirk, Spock, and Uhura are sitting together at the end of an episode, and that was a great moment. But we have 4 of the legacy characters now.
Yeah.
On the show, and for me, like, just Kirk was fantastic. Like in Tomorrow, he nailed the performance. In Quality of Mercy from season 1, he nailed the performance. And then Lost in Translation nailed the performance. And then of course Subspace Rhapsody nailed the performance. So, they did a great job of casting Kirk. I'm really looking forward to seeing him. And I think that his character really stood out. And then if there was a character from the main cast that stood out to me, it was definitely Chapel. She got a lot of love this season. And a negative for me is, once again, we did not get ourselves an Ortega's episode. So they had better start out with at least episode 2 with Ortega's getting her love. So, but that we can go too deep into that one. When you only have 10 episodes per season, it's kind of hard to do. So it's good. Wow. We kind of like wrapped up the last couple segments in there. So do you have any final thoughts for season 2?
I like it. Like I said, I think this was a standout season. I think there were so many hits with this season that it was like a definite like step up from season 1.
Agreed.
And I really hope that trend continues. I can only assume that we're probably gonna get 5 seasons of Strange New Worlds because of how traditionally Star Trek seasons have gone.
Right.
That one season is a year.
Yep.
So I can only assume that we're getting 5 seasons.
Yep. Like with Discovery, it's likely we're gonna get 5 seasons over 7 years. And that's totally fine. I agree on your front, on your thoughts. I same. I thought that they nailed season 2. They absolutely landed it. They just started filming season 3 as of recording right now. So they're out there filming and doing their thing. And so I'm super excited about, just getting towards, gosh, it's going to be probably 2020, maybe this time next year before we get it. So just excited for it. I thought that they nailed it, like absolutely nailed it. It was an enjoyable season. I watched each episode a few times, and there are some absolute classics that came out of this season. So I'm just super excited about that.
Agreed.
So you're the man with the master list. what are we looking at for our next episode?
You will have to give me 1 minute.
I have no idea what I did with that thing, by the way.
So the next episode of the podcast will be featuring both seasons 3 and 4 of Lower Decks.
Oh, we're going Star Trek double feature, are we? Huh?
We're double featuring with Star Trek.
I love it. That's awesome.
I can't wait to talk about seasons 3 and 4.
Same.
Both of those, again, like I'm saying, like each one has been a step up, and
yeah, hard to believe.
Like I said, Lower Decks is probably one of my favorite Star Trek series, so I'm really looking forward to talking about some Lower Decks on the next one.
Love it. Well, sweet, and obviously we've been this week, as of recording, we managed to drop 4 episodes for the first time in a week. Mm-hmm. That's kind of crazy. Just dropped the Venator episode, or not the Venator, that was last while ago. Just dropped the Marauder episode this morning, and yeah, that one was an adventure to edit, let me tell you. So yeah, got a lot of stuff coming on the channel. We'll have this podcast out to you soon. That's all I got today. I usually hog the last little bit, and so I'll just go ahead and say my little bit before I turn it over to Matt to say goodbye. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. If you'd like to support the channel, please like and subscribe. I hope you all have a wonderful day wherever you are in this beautiful world. Appreciate you listening. Appreciate you watching. And Matt, I'm sure, has something to say on the way out the door.
By physical media, the sales for Prodigy Season 1, both Part 1 and Part 2, absolutely blew sales out of the water, and we're out of stock for months. Buy physical media, if not just to own it, to watch the bonus scenes and deleted features at the end of those discs.
Love it. Love it. All right, my friends. Thank you so much. Until we see each other again, my friends, live long and prosper.
And may the force be with you.